Right, guys. So let's move on to the next one. So the next one, this editorial, India's demographic dividend as a time bomb. So again, if you look at the relevance of this GS1, GS2, GS3 essay paper interview across, it's very important. So GS1, direct Indian society, population and associated issues, demographic dividend, that area it's connected. And then GS2, if you see issues related to education, human resources, social sector development, that areas, right? And then GS3, straightforward, again, skill development, employment, growth, economic development, all these are connected. AI, science and technology area also, it's one way or the other, it's connected. And then essay, right? Topic on youth, topic on employment, topic on human capital, demographic dividend, straightforward, direct essay question. Apart from that, interview also, they will ask you like, India's job crisis, NEP 2020, skilling initiatives, and AI and automation projects. So they will, and its impact. So across the areas, prelims, mains, in mains, all the GS papers, it's important. So let's start with the factual background. So I hope this part is covered, and then let's look at the factual background. So what the editorial is talking about, India's median age is 28 years, and that's making it one of the youngest nations in the world. It can give us a statement in the prelims, and I have given a prelims question here. India's median age is around 18 years, making, we'll just try to make prelims question also based on this. So I'll come to that towards the end, and that's some factual background. Nearly 12 million, people enter the workforce every year. So these are points which you can mention in your answers, whether it's GS, whether it's essay, right? And then the McKinsey estimates 1 in 9 jobs may be automated by 2030. So that's going to, the Indian society is going to face that big job crisis by 2030. Everything is getting automated. 1 out of 9 jobs will be automated. So now itself, you can see that impact in IT sector especially, but that will permeate through each and every aspect also. So again, if you see, despite producing 30% of world's STEM graduates, science, technology, engineering, maths, but a large number of Indian graduates are still unemployable, right? And then India's education employment mismatch, if you see, 63% of employees say, employers, they are looking for new graduates are not job ready. They are just graduated, they are not job ready. And only 43% graduates are employable. So that's the India Skill Report 2024. So that again shows the pathetic situation of the youth, the graduates, and if you look at the targets, the ambitious targets like 400 million skilled workers by 2025, that's the Skill India Mission, PMKVY, right? But the issues with the execution. So how is it going to be possible when the employers are telling that 63% of the graduates are not job ready? They can't, afford to take them. Now, if you look at the key arguments in the editorial, there's something which you can add in your answers. So one of the argument is demographic dividend that is turning into a liability. So India's youth, that bulge, it should be an asset, right? Only if education is there and skilling is there and job opportunities is there and it has to match. Otherwise, these guys are going to be a huge liability. So that's the first point. Otherwise, it's become a demographic time bomb with issues like unrest, unemployment, and that can lead to crimes. So that is going to be a time bomb. That's the first point. And then if you look at it, next point, mismatch between education and employment. So the curricula are not aligned with fast changing job markets. Yes. And non-STEM graduates face major unemployment, right? Even STEM graduates lack that practical job ready skills. STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. So that's what you mean by the social background. Science background is what I mean by non-STEM and then STEM. Now coming to digital tools, but the mindset gap. This again, India has launched coding labs, Adele tinkering labs and Skill India programs. Multiple, digital tools and facilities are there, but that mindset is still, lagging, and that gap is there. So the mindset is like analog. The analog mindsets, and of course, this rote learning and outdated pedagogy that hinder the innovation part. That's the next argument. And then he's also talking about automation and the future jobs. So like AI, artificial intelligence, robotics, and digital disruption will eliminate the low skill jobs. Anything which can be automated will be replaced, right? So anything which is having repetitive in nature, that could be replaced. So that is what actually that's already there. And that is what going to happen by 2030. Anything which is repetitive, anything which have a pattern, anything which can be automated It's gone by 2030. So don't go for computer science engineering again. Don't ask your, friends or your relatives to go with that. Programming, no one want you to do the programming now. Okay. Again, we're talking about automation, right? So the low skill jobs will be eliminated, and then the new jobs will emerge in areas like green energy, AI. So now you can see multiple advertisements like AI prompt engineers. What is prompt engineer? You're just typing, this is what you're supposed to do to AI. That's not a prompt engineer or not a specific job. Then cyber security, health tech. But of course, you require high level of skills, high end skills. Okay. And then the decisive decade. India has now like a narrow window, that is the next 10-15 years, to leverage its demographic advantage. So if we capitalize on that, it's going to be good. So the next 10-15 years, that's what, like, if you fail in this, that will have to pay a huge price that can lead to this, youth. This present demographic dividend can turn into disaster like unemployment crisis and social unrest. And uh, he's also talking about that risk like the Mandal Commission agitation in 1990s. Similar kind of agitations and unrest will come in future. So where these guys will go, unemployment is a bigger issue, right? So the youth bulge that could turn into a youth bomb. Now, why this is important? Why this is important, especially for UPSC? So see, when we talk about demographic dividend, that's the largest working age population. But dividend is not equal to automatic. It requires quality education, it requires skilling, and it requires jobs. And that's where we are lacking, right? Simply you are saying that we have this youth population, that doesn't mean that you are going to get that dividend in terms of advantage. Are we getting that advantage? Rather, it will turn out to be a disaster if you're not properly educating, if you're not properly skilling them, and if you don't have that job opportunities. So you can also talk about the global parallels like Japan, South Korea, China. They have successfully converted their youth bulge into a high productive economies. And sub-Saharan Africa, that they are struggling with youth unemployment, and they are facing that instability. So similar situation can come in India also. So without addressing the mismatch that we discussed, then what we are risking is like a middle income trap, right? So or this youth become a time bomb. Now there are policy gaps as well. Education system basically prioritizes that degree over the skills. So skill-based education is what required, and limited industry academia collaboration. So you are teaching everything, rote learning the theory part, but that industry connectivity is not there, and underfunded skill development programs. So these are some points which additionally comes. Now let's look at some alternate perspective or the critical analysis. So we'll talk about the positives, we'll talk about the challenges, and we'll talk about the way forward here. So see, NEP 2020, that basically emphasizes on critical thinking, digital literacy, vocational education. So that's something which are positive, and schemes like PMKVY, Skill India, Digital India, Startup India are of course the steps forward. And then global companies are basically viewing India as a talent hub for AI, IT, and biotech. Now, what are the challenges? The ones which we already discussed, the execution gaps that remain large, and the quality of education varies drastically across states. And employability crisis is very much structural and not cyclical. Now, what are the way forward? So, industry-driven curricula and vocational training. So, I'll just post it here in the group. Okay, stronger, apprenticeship ecosystem. That's something which can be done, and focus on lifelong learning and reskilling to adapt to automation. So it's not about you have learned something during your college time and it's over. Not like that. It's lifelong learning. The more you learn, the more you will become better. You earn and you will contribute also. And decentralized state-led innovation in skill development. So guys, the point is India's demographic dividend. It's an opportunity. Yes, we are only talking about that as a dividend, but that dividend won't come automatically. Only if you skilled, only if you get educated, that's when you can capitalize upon this, right? And with this 300 million youth that's entering into the workforce by 2030, India have to go with a proper, planned reform in its education and its skilling and employment ecosystem. Otherwise, The so-called dividend that we are talking about, that will turn out to be a demographic time bomb, demographic disaster, and that can fuel the unrest, inequality, and you are actually wasting that potential. So in the next 10 to 15 years, if you're not taking action, that's the harm. Or so the next decade is what decisive. That's exactly what this editorial is also talking about. So we have to, the country must have to act now to ensure the youth become job creators and not job seekers. So very useful for your GS1, GS2, GS3 essay topics, and of course for interview. Now let's look at some of the questions. In fact, this prelims question, I have taken three statements. In fact, all are correct. But so that you will remember, that's the reason why I've taken this question. So India's median age is around 28 years, making India the youngest major economies. Right, nearly 12 million people enter in India's workforce every year. According to estimates, nearly 1 in every 9 jobs in India risk automation by 2030. Fine. Next one also, you can look at these statements directly taken from the editorial. All are true. Fair enough. Now let's look at this mains question. So the question is like this: India's demographic dividend can easily turn into a demographic disaster if education and employment challenges are not addressed properly. So you need to discuss in the light of recent concerns in skill gap, in automation, in AI development, AI revolution. All could be put as a context here. So how will you proceed further? You'll write an introduction. It has the whatever we discussed now, world's largest youth population with a median age of 28 years. And then the demographic dividend is an economic growth potential that rises from, young working age population. Fine. But without adequate skills and jobs, this dividend risk basically, can become a disaster like demographic time bomb. So directly from the editorial. Now in the body, you can mention whatever we have already discussed about, like opportunities of the dividend, like the large workforce potential for high productivity, 30% share in global STEM graduates. Yes. And then the scope for innovation, scope for startups and global digital leadership part. And then when you talk about the challenges, the main issues like unemployment, 12 million youths enter workforce yearly, so risking that employment aspect, and jobs are not keeping that pace. Employability crisis, only 43% graduates are employable according to skill report. 63 are not job ready. Education industry mismatch, 60% of the corporate leaders find curricula the outdated one. And then automation and AI, 1 in 9 jobs, that's going to be automated by 2030 and much more in the coming years. So non-STEM graduates are facing greater marginalization. Now, what are the consequences if unaddressed this issue? This rising youth unemployment that can lead to social unrest, political instability, loss of global competitiveness, and then risk of failing into middle income trap. Fine. So what's the way forward? You need to align. These are things that directly can be written in the answer. You just need this one only. So everything else is something which you can write under that. Align education with the market needs. That means you need to strengthen that industry oriented or the vocational training and the apprenticeship. Okay. And implementation of NEP 2020 in its true spirit. So basically that have to bring in that digital literacy and make job ready, and critical thinking is very important, and invest in lifelong learning and reskilling for automation era, the era which is coming. you know you need lifelong learning. It's not learned once in college and it's over. No, public private collaboration in skill development, and then focus on employability and not on degree. So in conclusion, you can say it's a opportunity, not a threat, the same one which I have discussed just before. So the next decade is going to be decisive. With proper reform, you can capitalize on that. India can become a global talent hub. Otherwise, this demographic dividend can turn out to be a disaster. So this is how this one you can answer. So I hope you got it.